Hello, wherever you are joining us from today, I want to say a huge welcome to our global community. We hope you're enjoying the Developer Marketing Summit. I also want to send out an extra special thank you to all our sponsors, partners, and speakers who together have made this event possible. I hope you are finding today's sessions insightful, and I want to remind you that the learnings don't stop here. If you haven't already, you can become a PMA member or upgrade to an Access All Areas Pass to benefit from unlimited access to all today's content. What's more, you can continue the conversation in the PMA's Slack community. If you aren't already a member, then hop on over and join the discussions today. And remember, this is your chance to get involved. Please share your feedback and questions in the comments section for our speakers to answer. It really is that simple. Let's resume the sessions.
Hello, my name is Danny Scott Duke, and it's my pleasure to present to you The Futurist Developer, what product marketers need to know about engaging developer audiences. Just a little about me, my education, experience, and some hobbies. As you can see, I have a solid background in software and technical marketing with time spent as a product marketing manager. A little over a decade ago, I started to research developers because I wanted to understand how to best and most effectively communicate with them, because it was clear that our traditional strategies, tactics, and campaigns were not resonating with this particular audience. What I've learned, I'll share with you here today. Before crafting a developer strategy, you must understand that it requires a completely different approach. This is a unique audience, and although you'll use all of the skills and tools that you have in the product marketing core framework, the approach and the perspective will be different. These are just a few ways that developers are unique. Of course, developers are not a monolith like any other audience, but by and large, these are typical considerations you must have as you're crafting your strategy. I think one of the key takeaways here is the fact that developers can be adverse to traditional marketing. I don't want to say that developers hate marketing, but some of our typical tactics, such as analyst reports and long form content like ebooks, don't resonate with this audience. Perhaps it makes sense to stop considering developer marketing and really look at it from the developer experience. What you see in front of you is a breakdown of some of the traditional marketing strategies that marketers employ, next to what the developer experience looks like. From the point of segmentation, within traditional marketing, we tend to segment audiences based on industries, focus markets, and regions. However, for developers, this is different. We can segment developer audiences by use cases, the programming languages that they use, their role or function, as well as region. Now, region has a unique nuance because although a developer may live in Brazil, for example, the work that they're doing is for customers and clients in Singapore. When we talk about segmenting developers by role and function, that means web developers have unique needs over mobile app developers, just as an example. And looking at content, as I mentioned before, long form content doesn't resonate with this audience. Instead, they prefer short form text and video content. And any content developed for developer audiences needs to be inspirational and educational. So what do I mean by that? Educational content, it consists of how your products can be used, whereas inspirational gives them ideas of real world use cases and how they may employ your products to fit their needs. When you develop content for other audiences, it can be aspirational and you can gate much of your premium content. That doesn't work for developers. You want to focus on ungated content such as blog articles. And whatever you produce needs to be focused on your technology and your products. Thought leadership for developers is mostly respected from internal developer evangelists and advocates because essentially they are developers. They also look to other developer externally, influencers and bloggers, as opposed to industry analysts or C-level executives. The kinds of things that you would promote and use for decision maker audiences don't work for developers. They want to hear from other developers. They also look to developer communities and forums for thought leadership. So they sort of feed off of each other and share information. And that's how you can gain thought leadership among these audiences. Really put your evangelists and your advocates out there to share their experiences, their knowledge, and to resonate and connect with other developers and your prospective customers. Now, when we talk about events, conferences and trade shows are the cornerstone of pretty much every every marketing strategy. The difference with developers is that their interactions in your booth are expected to be more technical in nature, as opposed to conversations with sales staff. In addition, they look for the auxiliary hands-on experiences that come with many live events, such as hackathons and workshops. As you're developing and creating content or presentations for keynotes and workshops, make sure they're more on the technical side of content and really connect the dot between what you're offering and what attendees of those events have come to look for. When it comes to sales for developers, simple and standard pricing and self-serve experiences. And they want limited interactions with salespersons. And then when you talk about your products, typically when we describe our products to executives, we present high-level functions and features. Developers, they want to know what's under the hood, what makes it work, and what are the technical competitive advantages. I assume that if you're looking to build a developer strategy, you're trying to drive developer activity. That activity comes in two forms: awareness and interest, as well as acquisition and retention. Awareness and interest are the tactics and strategies that you use to drive developers to your website or to your developer portal. Acquisition and retention activity, this is what happens after your developers make it to your website. You want to acquire them, whether that means signing up for your newsletter or to receive company information, or driving them to your developer portal to register for an account so that they can experience your products. You want to make whatever sign-up process as frictionless as possible. Once they've signed up, you want to make it as intelligent and intuitive as possible for them to find what they've come to look for, whether that's APIs, SDKs, documentation, whatever it is. You want to make sure that developers have a good experience within your website or within your developer portal. Of course, once you've acquired them, you want to make sure developers are active and keep them active. That means giving them hands-on experiences. As always, make sure your documentation and your tutorials, code snippets, and anything else that you offer are as up to date as possible. There's nothing worse for a developer experience than for them to need help and to find out that the tools that they would typically use to get that help are out of date. Let's go a little bit deeper into the typical go-to-market strategy as it relates to crafting it to fit developer audiences. Developers as customers. The term developer can be a bit of a misnomer because we tend to think of developers as people that just sit around writing code all day, and that's not necessarily the case. Developers, as a title, can also include product managers, project managers, solution and systems architects, designers, and more. They all have the common background of understanding how software is built, how it works, and how it integrates within the tools that they use, and how they can use software to solve the problems that they have. Developers can work within and probably do work in the markets that you're focused on, your target markets, but they're not defined by that company or industry. Keep in mind that developers typically switch jobs every 18 to 24 months on average. Not every developer, but on average, every 18 to 24 months, they change jobs. Developers are in high demand, and you have to recognize that. Ideally, you want to speak to their needs so that you become their solution provider of choice, regardless of what industry they're working in. So, for example, a mobile app developer may work in transportation now, but in 6 months, when they change jobs, they'll be working in retail. They'll still be doing mobile app development work, which means some of the tools that they've used in the past, they'll want to employ in their new environment. And because of these job changes, developers can be segmented by use cases, programming languages, and functions. So JavaScript developers can be a segment depending on what your product offers. Something that's essential when thinking about crafting your developer strategy is to realize that developers are no longer at the end of the buying process, hence the term long tail developers, which I really never use that term because it doesn't apply. Developers play a more significant role now throughout the process of identifying and selecting technologies for their businesses. In the role of an initiator, developers seek tools and solutions in order to meet the needs of their given project or product or problem at the time. They are also users and influencers when their upper management present them with software to be tested and to determine whether or not that software is a good fit, that software or product is a good fit for their particular organization or environment. And in many ways, developers can be decision makers. A wise person once told me that developers may not always be able to say yes to a product, but they can definitely say no. They can say no to products, solutions, tools that are cumbersome, difficult to use, or ones that they've had a poor experience with in the past. And you want to avoid that by keeping in mind, this is more about the developer experience than it is about developer marketing. As you develop the value propositions, understand that developers look for straightforward and straight to the point content. So avoiding fluff, jargon, and that which is the abstract. Your value propositions really need to speak to three specific things. One, what does your product do? What are the pain points that it addresses? What are the needs that it will solve or the problems that it will solve? And what is the actuality? So don't speak in terms of future functions and features. What does it do right now? It also helps to provide real world use cases. The second, how does it work? I like to think of developers as mechanics, as a type of mechanic, because they want to see not only what does the product do, but how does it work? How does it interact? What powers it? And how will it impact and influence the other products that are used around it? And then finally, who uses it? So establishing credibility goes a long way to acquiring and retaining developer audiences and developer users. And in order to do that, credibility can be gathered by establishing use cases and demonstrating other users of your products. Those users don't always have to be from big companies. Like I said before, the community consists of evangelists as well as external influencers and other developers within the developer community. Therefore, establishing users and use cases from those sources can go a long way to bringing about the credibility you need in order to gather more users for your products. When I first started focusing on developer audiences, it was clear that some of our traditional methods of engaging developers wasn't working. So the things that we would employ for C-level executives just didn't work for developers, again, such as analyst reports. I started to understand that developers have different needs and they go to different locations and outlets for information, for engagement, and for finding new solutions. So while some of the traditional methods work, such as search engine optimization and paid search, as I mentioned before, employing things like paid pay-per-click campaigns and place content need to be within publications that focus specifically on developers' interests and needs. And some of those I've listed here. Email can work for developers. However, as I said before, it needs to be opt-in and non-intrusive, which means not too frequent. And it also needs to be relevant and straightforward. So making sure that your direct email campaigns and direct email outreach have some sort of relevancy to product information, what's going on within the developer community, as well as events and topical subjects will help go a long way to retaining readership. Another unique aspect of developer audiences, and I've mentioned this before, is the fact that they have a community focus or they have a community, a penchant for working and listening to their community peers. So looking at some of the communities that are out there, such as GitHub and Slashdata, you want to make sure that you have a presence within those channels. Now, not necessarily from a strictly marketing perspective. And when I say that, that means giving your evangelists and technical experts the opportunity to engage with your prospective customers as well as existing customers through those community channels. Social media is also big with developers in ways that might not necessarily work for upper level decision makers. Channels such as Reddit and Twitter have large developer communities and many opportunities for you to not only interact with your prospective and existing users, but also for you to listen to what's going on within their world. This will help you continuously craft content and messaging to fit what's going on with them and what their interests are. Being aware of these non-traditional options and opportunities really can give you a competitive edge over your competitors because not everyone understands the world of developer marketing when it comes to stepping outside of the box and reaching them within these new spaces that haven't really been touched when it comes to decision maker or corporate marketing strategies. Positioning for developers, this can be a little tricky. Understand that positioning is a marathon. It is definitely not a sprint and will continuously evolve over time due to the nature of your products, as well as the nature of the developer universe. Things change on a regular basis, and you want to make sure that your positioning and your messaging and everything that you're doing to target developers evolves along with it. So as you're looking at positioning, consider the market fit. When I say that, I mean, there's a really good chance that your products will be used amongst other tools and solutions. So what's the position there? How well will it integrate with those products within the different organizations that you're targeting? How well will your products augment the skill set of the developers you're targeting or help them build new skills? And then think in terms of technical application. Again, where will your products be used? What will they be used to achieve? And how do you communicate that in the best way possible for developers? Again, don't speak in terms of abstract, consider the real practical applications. I also want you to take a long look at what your competitors are doing. Don't shy away from what the differentiators are between what you offer and what your competitors offer, and be honest and upfront about that. Even if your competitors offer, let's say, a better product, the experience for developers with your product could be better, and that could be your huge advantage. And when we talk about competitors, don't just consider the big ones. What we tend to see within corporate environments is that they consider their competitors to be other large companies, as opposed to smaller startups, which they tend to ignore. Those startups come out of nowhere and they disrupt entire markets. Think of Uber and Bird scooters as an example. So as you're looking at positioning and you're looking to craft your positioning, pay attention to the entire landscape, not just the landscape that seems most obvious. The distribution model for developers doesn't have to be complicated. For the most part, there are three basic ways to make sure developers have access to the products that you offer. First is direct, pretty straightforward. This is when developers come to your developer portal, sign up, and consume through your own channel. Make sure that this is a great experience for them. Make sure that, first of all, you're driving your traffic to your developer portal from your awareness and acquisition strategies. And then once they're there, make sure there's alignment between the messaging in your awareness and acquisition strategies and what they see on the developer portal. Make sure it's a good experience, like I said. So it should be well organized and intuitive. They should be able to search for what they're looking for, and make sure, and again, ensure that documentation is updated. Ideally, developers want self-serve options. They like working in their own time, in their own frame, and self-serve gives them the opportunity to do that, because the name of the game when it comes to software development is speedy, quick development and faster time to market. I mean, that's what agile software development practices are all about. And you want to make sure that you're in line with what their expectations are. Marketplaces, for most software offerings and most developer offerings, marketplaces are essential, because you want sort of an ambient availability for developer acquisition. What does that mean? Okay, ambient is be wherever they are. Marketplaces are where developers are. Consider AWS marketplaces, Azure, IBM, Red Hat. There are numerous marketplaces out there, and they operate pretty much like a Target or a Walmart. It's where developers go that are where they can find the APIs, SDKs, and other tools that they're looking for. They're convenient and familiar. So when you place your products within the marketplaces, let's say APIs within AWS, you want to maximize that channel as much as possible, as much detail as possible. Make sure that the documentation is updated. If you can incorporate code snippets and tutorial videos, do as much as you can, because again, this is where developers go to find the tools that they need. Another thing to keep in mind is that within some corporate environments, their developers must use marketplaces in order to purchase and incorporate new tools into their technology stack. So, for example, there are developers that are required to use IBM Marketplace. You want to make sure that if you want those developers that your products are there within reach where they are required to where they're required to go in order to get new tools and solutions. And of course, there are partners and resellers. So these are value-added resellers, ISRs, ISVs, etc. In any case, regardless of what your partner or reseller model looks like, you want to enable them as much as possible to represent your products in the best way. That means giving them proper technical training, all of the sales enablement tools and information they need, and then ongoing support. Again, documentation is key. So as you build your distribution model, there needs to be a regular cadence of documentation review in order to make sure that it's accurate and that developers are having the best experience that they can. And finally, pricing. Pricing for developers doesn't need to be complicated. In fact, you may want to begin with a freemium or trial model. This gives developers the opportunity to experience and interact with your products without any commitment. Then from there, give them optional upgrades that require payment, such as additional usage or storage. As part of your strategy, you want to create a path to paying conversion model. And once those developers convert to paying customers, keep the pricing structure simple and very straightforward. These are just a few examples: per user, tiered, module, usage-based, very simple, and what developers have come to expect. Be sure to check out your competitors' pricing models. Whether it's cheaper pricing or pricing that's more straightforward and simple, you can get a competitive edge just through your pricing alone to accompany your products, of course. No matter what you do, work to remove the contact us requirement for developers. Again, they want to move at their own pace and they want things to be easily accessible. When they have to contact anyone in order to find out the basics of what to expect for pricing, that becomes a friction process and not something that developers are really open to. Again, developers want to operate as smoothly as possible, and the need to contact someone just to find out how much your products cost creates speed bumps that they're not really open to. And the last note on pricing, I'll also say that if possible, make your pricing public, or at least easy to find, so that developers know what to expect when it comes to purchasing your product offerings. I hope that you've enjoyed this as much as I have. Thank you for your time.
Talk with any product-focused team at an enterprise technology company and they'll share the same story. They know they need a vibrant user community to spur product adoption and growth. But what they don't know is the best way to build, manage, and grow one. How do they connect with current and prospective users at scale? Do they build their own community? Do they join existing communities? There's an easier way. Collectives on Stack Overflow helps you unlock the power of your community. You can reach and engage millions of developers on Stack Overflow and connect with those interested in your technology. Share knowledge and support users of your products, and drive growth through actionable data and insights. Ready to unlock the power of your community? Visit collectivesonstackoverflow.com today.